Hey everyone, let's talk about Swedish death metal. It became super popular in the late 1980s and it was a powerful mix of aggressive music with catchy melodies. The Swedish scene was really influenced by punk rock and early metal bands that were really intense. Bands like Discharge and Black Flag inspired the raw energy, while Venom and Slayer gave them ideas for their extreme sound. One of the first Swedish extreme metal bands was Bathory. They actually came from the crust punk scene, which included bands like Anti-Cimex and Mob 47. Bathory's music was super dark and heavy, and it really set the stage for the huge wave of death metal that was about to hit. But this Swedish death metal wave didn't just happen overnight, it grew slowly, with early bands trying out different sounds and mixing things up. They combined punk, metal, and hardcore music, creating a foundation for the brutal music that would follow. By the mid-80s, a distinct Swedish sound started to emerge. This sound was faster, heavier, and more intense than anything that came before. The world was about to take notice. A new era of death metal was about to begin. Stockholm, Sweden became like the center of the Swedish death metal world in the late 1980s. Bands like Nihilist, Carnage, and Dismember became really popular. They all recorded at Sunlight Studio, a legendary place that became known for producing that Swedish death metal sound. One of the things that made Swedish death metal stand out was the buzzsaw guitar tone. They got this sound by using a special guitar pedal called the Boss HM2 heavy metal pedal. Guitarists would crank up the mid-range on this pedal, creating a distorted and abrasive sound that cut through the music like a chainsaw. The buzzsaw guitar tone became a signature element of Swedish death metal, giving the music a raw and aggressive edge. It perfectly captured the intensity and brutality of the genre. This sound was so unique. Fans all over the world instantly recognized it. Bands like Entombed and Grave took the Stockholm sound even further, pushing the limits of extreme music. Their influence spread beyond Sweden, turning Swedish death metal into a global phenomenon. In the early 1990s, a new wave of Swedish death metal bands emerged. These bands took what the earlier bands had done and made it even more brutal and technical. Entombed, with their groundbreaking album Left Hand Path, became leaders of this new wave. Dismember, another influential band, released their debut album, Like an Ever-Flowing Stream. This album showed off their ferocious sound and incredible musical skills, solidifying their place as major players in the Swedish death metal scene. These bands, along with Grave and Unleashed, cemented Sweden's reputation as a death metal powerhouse. Their music was relentless, uncompromising, and undeniably Swedish. They inspired countless bands worldwide and changed the direction of extreme music. Swedish death metal was no longer an underground thing, it was a global force. This second wave of bands made sure that Swedish death metal would continue to thrive. While Stockholm was the birthplace of Swedish death metal, another city, Gothenburg, became known for a new style of melodic death metal. This Gothenburg sound, started by bands like At the Gates in Flames and Dark Tranquillity, kept the intensity of traditional death metal but also added in more melodic elements. At the Gates album, Slaughter of the Soul became super important for melodic death metal. Its mix of aggression and melody connected with a lot of people and inspired a whole new generation of bands. The Gothenburg sound, with its focus on melody and atmosphere, expanded the boundaries of death metal and attracted a wider audience to the genre. This sound became hugely influential, impacting countless bands in Sweden and around the world. The legacy of Swedish death metal is vast. From the raw brutality of the Stockholm scene to the melodic mastery of Gothenburg, Swedish death metal has left a huge mark on the world of extreme music. And you know what? It continues to inspire and influence musicians today.